Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I didn't react the first time she said it. You're just convenient. Not exciting. Her voice was cold, detached, like she was ordering a drink, not slicing through my ribs. Then she went back to scrolling, legs crossed on the couch, wine in hand, eyes never meeting mine. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not shattered, shifted. Quietly, like furniture being moved in an empty room. I didn't speak, didn't ask what she meant, didn't demand an apology. I just stood there for a second, then walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, poured a glass of water, and stared into the silence. It was louder than any scream. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a bad night. It wasn't stress. It was a pattern. Years of being diminished, brushed off, ignored, all wrapped in thin excuses and polite neglect. She thought silence meant safety. That as long as I didn't yell, I was still under her spell. But I wasn't quiet because I was weak. I was quiet because I was calculating. And this was the beginning. We used to be solid. Jenna and I met in 2015. She was composed, sharp, a front desk manager at a law firm. I was an HVAC tech, blue collar, honest work. I liked how calm she was. Predictable. Safe. We moved in quick, got married faster. I wasn't flashy. I just wanted stability. I gave her that. Pancakes on Sundays. Movie nights. Vacations we saved months for. I built a life around her, and she let me. Until she didn't. The erosion came slow. No more hugs in the hallway. No more laughter at my stupid jokes. No more goodnight kisses, or even basic curiosity about my day. I'd crawl into bed after 12-hour shifts, reeking of fiberglass and sweat, just wanting to feel her next to me. She'd roll away, every single time. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Don't breathe on my neck. As if I was intruding into a space that wasn't mine anymore. It hurt, more than I let on. But I didn't push. I thought maybe it was work stress. Hormonal shifts. A phase. Turns out, the phase was me, and she had outgrown it. She stopped seeing me. But I saw everything. The way she lit up at her phone, but dimmed around me. The subtle changes. Tighter clothes for nights out with the girls. A locked screen. Late meetings with vague explanations. I asked nothing. I demanded less. And the less I demanded, the more invisible I became. Until that Tuesday night. You're just convenient. She said it like a diagnosis. Like I was the worn-out couch she didn't have the nerve to throw away yet. But here's what she didn't know. Convenient can disappear overnight. That night, I didn't beg. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead for clarity. I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I had just made a decision. This wasn't a marriage anymore. This was a waiting room she kept me in, until something better walked through the door. But she was about to learn something painful. The most dangerous man in the world isn't the one who yells. It's the one who leaves quietly, and never looks back. The first cut didn't come with blood. It came with silence. The next morning, I got up before the alarm, dressed in the dark, made coffee for one. I didn't say good morning. Didn't ask if she wanted breakfast. Just left. No note. No check-in text like I used to send. At work, I moved through the day like nothing had changed. Except everything had. That evening, I came home later than usual. On purpose. She was already on the couch. Netflix paused. A candle lit. Wearing that soft robe I hadn't seen in months. Her hair done, nails fresh. Like she was playing house with someone who still cared. You're late, she said casually. I just nodded and dropped my keys on the counter. Didn't explain. Didn't ask about dinner. Walked past her and started cleaning the mess in the kitchen. The wrappers, the wine-stained glass she never washed. I wiped each surface without looking her way. Something shifted in the room. It was subtle, but I felt it. She asked if I was okay. I said I was better than I'd been in a long time. Her eyes searched mine for a hint of sarcasm. There was none. Just stillness. I walked upstairs. She didn't follow. That became the new rhythm. I stopped reaching. Stopped responding with enthusiasm. No more, how was your day when I got home? No more trying to make her laugh. I became a quiet presence. Polite, efficient, distant. She didn't like it. I saw it in the way she started hovering. Making conversation where there was none to make. Reaching out as if we were still us. But I wasn't hers anymore. Not really. She made pasta one night. From scratch. Lit a candle. Set the table like we were celebrating something. I sat. Ate. Thanked her. Then went back to scrolling on my phone. When she reached across the table, fingers brushing mine, I pulled my hand back without flinching. That's when I saw it, a flash of something in her eyes. Not pain. Panic. She had controlled the distance for so long, it never occurred to her that I might stop trying to close it. Now she was reaching, and I was already gone. I started rerouting my paycheck that week. Opened a new account at a credit union she didn't know about. Quietly, methodically. Canceled a few shared subscriptions. Nothing dramatic. Just small adjustments, bricks removed from a foundation she thought was permanent. Netflix logged her out 2 days later. She asked if I changed the password. I didn't answer. She tried to act unbothered. But the silence sat heavy between us. That weekend, she brought up the beach house trip we had planned for next month. I said she should go. Alone. She didn't argue. Just nodded slowly. But I saw it again, that flicker of confusion. Like she was trying to solve a puzzle that used to be simple. She thought she could control the temperature of our relationship. She forgot I was the one holding the thermostat. And now? I was turning it down, 1 degree at a time. I wasn't looking for proof. Not at first. I'd already made my decision. But sometimes the truth finds you, when you're calm, detached, no longer chasing. It was a Thursday night. She had fallen asleep early on the couch, phone slipped between the cushions, screen still glowing. I walked past it, paused, and stared. I didn't plan to pick it up. But I did. Not out of jealousy. Out of clarity. I opened her texts. Nothing overt, just patterns. Deleted threads, repeated calls to a number saved under a woman's name I'd never heard before. I checked the timestamps. 10:43 p.m. 2 nights ago. Then again the next morning. I scrolled further. The photos weren't explicit. Just subtle. Hair done. Lingerie in the mirror. Not for me. New earrings I'd never seen on her. Smiles that didn't belong to this house. I didn't feel rage. I felt confirmed. Everything I suspected, everything I had tolerated, explained itself in seconds. That night, I didn't confront her. I slept beside her like usual, a few inches of dead air between us, her back turned, breathing steady. She had no idea I knew. And I wanted to keep it that way. Because confrontation would give her control. Emotion would give her an excuse. But silence? Silence was mine. The next morning, I got up early, showered, and left while it was still dark. I drove to a diner across town I hadn't visited in years. Ordered black coffee and eggs I didn't finish. Then sat there for an hour planning the next phase. This wasn't going to be a war. This was going to be an exit strategy. Clean. Surgical. I started collecting. Bank statements. Phone records. Screenshots. I visited a lawyer 2 days later. Didn't tell anyone. Not even my closest friend. I wanted no advice, no sympathy. Just precision. I learned how vulnerable she actually was. The car was in my name. The mortgage? Mostly paid by my income. Every subscription, every convenience, quietly managed by me. And so, I began untangling. One thread at a time. At home, I stayed neutral. Calm. No sudden moves. I still took out the trash, paid the bills, fixed the dripping faucet. But the emotional lifeline? I'd already cut it. She noticed. The third night in a row, I came home late. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You've been distant," she said. "Are you mad at me?" I just looked at her and said I was tired, which was true. Tired of being someone's fallback, someone's placeholder. She tried to touch my arm. I stepped back without flinching. Something in her eyes cracked. She wasn't used to being dismissed. Not like that. Not by me. But this wasn't revenge. It was preparation. I wasn't walking out yet. I was making sure that when I did, there'd be nothing left she could hold on to. I didn't slam the door. I didn't announce it. I just disappeared. The first thing I cut was the noise. No more good mornings. No more, "I'll be home late." I stopped updating her on my schedule, stopped explaining where I was or when I'd be back. I left early, came home late, and moved like a shadow in my own house. She started to notice. Not with words, but with movements. The way she lingered near the front door when I left. The way her eyes tracked me when I walked past without a glance. The way her hand would hover like she wanted to stop me, but never did. I stopped charging my phone next to the bed. Left it in the garage. She couldn't check it anymore. Couldn't scroll through call logs or invent suspicions. Because there was nothing left to see. I wasn't hiding anything. I was just gone. I started sleeping better. Not longer, but deeper. The kind of sleep that comes when your body finally matches your mind, when both are exhausted by pretending. I still shared the bed, but only physically. Emotionally, I'd moved out weeks ago. I rented a storage unit on the edge of town. Nothing flashy. Just a clean, quiet space with a roll-up door and a key code she didn't know. I began packing the life I was taking with me. Not all at once. One box at a time. Old tools, photo albums, my college hoodie she never liked, the passport she once said I'd never use. I emptied myself from that house piece by piece, like smoke slipping out of a window. One Friday, I turned off my phone completely. No text. No GPS. No contact. I went to the mountains. Hiked alone. Slept in a cheap motel that smelled like cigarettes and freedom. When I came back Sunday night, she was pacing the kitchen. "Where were you?" she asked. I said I needed time to think. She asked, "Think about what?" I said, "Nothing in particular." Then I went upstairs, closed the door, and left her standing there. No raised voice. No argument. Just distance. That week, I disconnected her credit card from the joint account, moved her car insurance to a separate policy, transferred my own health plan to an individual provider. Quiet moves, but loud in consequence. She didn't find out until her payment declined for something online. She stood in the hallway with her laptop open, eyebrows tight. "You changed the billing info?" I nodded, told her we needed more financial independence. She didn't argue, but her posture shifted. That straight spine of control she always carried started to curve inward. Because she felt it now. The unraveling. The silent retreat. And she couldn't follow because she never saw the path I was walking. She asked if we were okay. I told her we were fine. And that was the moment I realized something. She still didn't understand. She thought silence was a cold shoulder. But no, silence was the beginning of her end. I wasn't looking for him. But once you learn to read patterns, you start to see shadows in places most people overlook. It started with a name, one I'd seen pop up twice on her phone before she got cagey. Once during a late-night call labeled work. Once in a calendar reminder that disappeared the next day. I remembered it. That's the thing about pulling away. Your mind clears. The fog lifts. You stop reacting emotionally and start observing methodically. So I dug. He was a consultant. Project manager on some case she'd mentioned back when she still talked to me about her job. I remembered her saying he's annoying, always asking questions. But annoying men don't get called at midnight. I found his LinkedIn. Instagram. Nothing explicit, nothing reckless. But if you know what to look for, the angles, the lighting, the captions, you see it. In one post, they were in the same room. Not together, but close enough. His smile didn't match the caption. Hers didn't match mine anymore. I didn't confront her. I confronted the reality. This wasn't about infidelity. This was about energy, time, secrets. Her sharing pieces of herself with someone else while rationing the leftovers for me. So I pivoted. Instead of chasing her, I started watching him. Turns out he wasn't as polished as he played. A history of bouncing between firms. Lawsuits that never made headlines but showed up in the court database. A personal bankruptcy 5 years ago. I printed it all. Compiled a dossier, not to use, not yet. Just to have. Just in case. I wasn't going to swing first. I was going to let him collapse under his own weight. And if I could give that weight a little nudge, all the better. One night she left her laptop open in the living room. I glanced. She was logged into a shared cloud folder for her firm. His name was all over it. She had no idea I copied it. And buried in that folder? Internal notes. Expense reports that didn't line up. Calendar inconsistencies. A pattern of impropriety. It wasn't just flirtation. It was liability. I sent an anonymous envelope to the firm's ethics committee the next morning. No return address. No fingerprints. Just enough data to raise questions. The fallout wouldn't be immediate, but it would come. Not from me. From inside their own system. She'd never know who lit the match. Because I never needed to burn her world down. Just warm it up enough to make her sweat. At home, I was colder than ever. She made small talk. I gave smaller answers. She lingered longer in doorways. I moved past her without stopping. She asked me to watch a movie one night, said it used to be our favorite. I said I wasn't in the mood. She stood there for a long time, holding the remote like it was a lifeline. But I wasn't reaching for it. I wasn't reaching for anything anymore. The first crack didn't come from me. It came from her best friend. They were close once, the kind of women who shared group chats, birthdays, brunch photos with filtered mimosas. But distance reveals more than confrontation ever will. It was a Saturday. I'd gone out early, spent the morning in silence at a local hardware store, just walking the aisles. No calls. No texts. When I came back, Her friend's SUV was parked outside. I walked in, calm as always. Voices in the kitchen. Tight. Urgent. I didn't eavesdrop. I just listened. You really thought no one would notice? Her friend said. He's changed. And honestly, I don't blame him. Jenna's voice dropped. Defensive, then desperate. He's cold. I don't know what's going on. It's like he just shut down. There was a pause. Then the sentence that landed like a hammer. No, Jenna. He just stopped giving what you stopped valuing. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just walked past the kitchen without looking in. Didn't say a word. Her friend turned to glance at me. Our eyes met, and she knew. She knew I wasn't the problem anymore. The next day, one of her coworkers followed me on Instagram. Some junior associate from her office I'd never spoken to. That's when I knew the news was spreading. Not from me. From the shift. The silence. The quiet unraveling of a woman who used to control every room, now standing alone in one she couldn't manage. That week, she got colder. Not because she was angry. Because she was exposed. Her mother called me, first time in months. Asked if everything was okay. I said things were exactly as they needed to be. She paused. Then said, she's been different. Distant. We're worried. I thanked her. Then ended the call. No defense. No explanation. Let them draw their own conclusions, because for the first time, the cracks weren't just inside our house. They were public. And she could feel the judgment. Not loud. Not hostile. Just that subtle shift in how people looked at her. Less admiration. More curiosity. Like they were wondering what changed. Who changed? And deep down, she knew the answer. That weekend, she suggested dinner with friends. Tried to dress it up like normalcy. I declined. She asked why. I told her I didn't feel like pretending. She flinched, just for a second. Because she knew what I meant. Our friends weren't stupid. They saw the space between us. They noticed how she reached while I receded. The laughter that no longer happened. The way I checked my watch instead of checking her smile. You can't hide distance forever. Eventually, someone asks the wrong question at the wrong moment, and the facade cracks. At brunch, her friend asked her directly, "Are you guys okay?" She said yes. But her eyes said no. And I said nothing. Because that was the plan. Let her drown in the silence she designed. It didn't happen all at once. The isolation crept in slowly, like winter settling over a house with cracks in the windows. She tried to ignore it, to fake warmth, but the cold was already inside. By now, I had stopped sleeping in the same bed. Officially, it was because of back pain. Truthfully, I couldn't stand the silence between us when the lights went off. Her presence felt like a weight pressing down on me. Not comfort. Pressure. I started crashing on the couch, and she didn't fight it. She probably thought I'd come back eventually. That was her mistake, thinking distance was temporary. At work, I was sharper than ever. More focused. My team noticed. One of the guys said, "Man, you're in a zone lately." I smiled, said nothing. Because the truth is, detachment is a superpower when it's earned. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was watching, learning, restructuring my entire life in plain sight. And she still hadn't noticed the full extent. At home, she began circling. Like a bird sensing the shift in air pressure. Asking if I wanted to talk. Asking if I'd be home for dinner. Suggesting we take a weekend away, just the two of us. I told her I was busy. That work was heavy. That I needed space. She tried harder. Cooked more. Wore old favorites she hadn't touched in months. Lingered longer in doorways, reaching for moments that no longer existed. But I wasn't mean. I was measured. I'd nod. Thank her for the meal. Sit in silence as she fidgeted with her fork. No anger. No argument. Just absence. And that drove her deeper into herself. Her friends stopped coming around. Her phone rang less. The energy she used to absorb from outside sources? Gone. People weren't asking questions anymore, because they already understood the answer. One night, she was sitting alone on the back porch. I walked out to grab something from the garage. She looked up and said, "It's really quiet lately." I said, "Yeah, it is." Then walked away. She stayed out there a long time. You see, when a man truly detaches, it's not a performance. It's not for attention. It's because he's already let go of the outcome. That's what she didn't understand. I wasn't punishing her. I was freeing myself. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie, some rom-com we used to joke about. I said I had work to do. The look on her face wasn't anger. It was fear. Not of me, but of the silence. Because now it echoed. Not just between us, but inside her. Every room in that house held a version of me she pushed away. And now she was left with ghosts she couldn't control. That's when I knew she felt it. The full weight of what she'd lost. Not a man, but access to my time, my energy, my care. And there's no apology that brings that back. She finally broke the silence. It was late on a Wednesday. The house had been still all evening. I was in the garage, sanding down an old bench, sawdust settling in the air like a fog. The kind of work that doesn't require thinking, just hands and breath. She opened the door quietly, stood there for a moment before speaking. I don't know who you are anymore. I kept sanding. I miss us, she said. I didn't respond. She stepped inside, her voice soft but shaking. Why are you doing this? I looked up just once and said, doing what? She opened her mouth like she had a speech prepared, then paused, because she didn't know how to frame it. Because I wasn't yelling. I wasn't slamming doors. I wasn't accusing, and that made it harder for her. She tried to cry. Not loudly, just enough to trigger something. Maybe sympathy. Maybe guilt. But those levers didn't work anymore. Not on me. I walked past her, into the house, wiped my hands, poured a glass of water. She followed. I feel like I'm living with a stranger. I nodded. So do I. Her shoulders dropped. She sat on the edge of the couch like a tenant asking the landlord for one more month. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. But I was already gone. I didn't lash out. Didn't list all the nights she turned away from me. Didn't bring up the messages I read, the voice she used with another man that I hadn't heard in years. I just told her the truth. That she trained me to stop trying. That silence wasn't revenge. It was a response. A response to rejection, to distance, to the slow erosion of intimacy that she pretended didn't exist. She tried to interrupt, to shift blame, but I kept my voice steady. You made it easy to leave long before I stood up to go. That's when she panicked. Not because she disagreed, but because she knew it was true. The confrontation didn't end in shouting. It ended in stillness. She asked if there was someone else. I told her no, because there wasn't. Just a version of myself that I remembered, that I wanted back. A man who didn't beg for warmth, who didn't shrink to make someone else comfortable. She asked what we were going to do. I said, I already did it, and walked upstairs. Left her sitting there, in the middle of the life she thought she controlled. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She stayed on the couch, the same one I used to crash on when I couldn't bear her silence. But this time, it was different. This time, the silence wasn't mine. It was hers. And it was louder than anything I could have said. It came slower than I expected. Not with slamming doors or screaming matches. Not with the chaos people imagine when a relationship implodes. No, it came like a slow leak under the floorboards, rotting everything from the inside while the surface looked untouched. She started waking up earlier than me. I'd hear her pacing the hallway, hear the coffee brewing at 5:30 a.m., even though she never drank coffee that early. Some mornings, I'd see her sitting at the kitchen table in silence, just staring. Not at her phone, not at anything, just stuck. The woman who once planned everything now didn't know what to do with a quiet house. Because I stopped reacting. And without my reactions, she lost her direction. She texted me from the other room one afternoon. Can we talk? I left it on read. Not to be cruel. Just because there was nothing left to clarify. She knew where this was heading. She just couldn't admit it. I had already signed the lease on a small place on the east side. Nothing impressive. 1 bedroom, neutral walls, space for tools in the garage. But it was mine. And every detail I added, every drawer I stocked, every plate I unboxed, reminded me of who I was before I shrank to fit her comfort. That version of me wasn't angry. He was clear. The next collapse was social. The firm she worked for started cutting back. Restructuring. She came home one night with her jaw tight, her voice clipped. Some people were being let go. I nodded. She wanted me to ask if she was safe. I didn't, because it wasn't my crisis anymore. 2 weeks later, I saw the layoff email open on her laptop. She'd been offered a severance. Quiet exit. Her world, so carefully curated, was folding in on itself. And I wasn't part of the wreckage. The final crack came when she called her sister. I heard the conversation through the walls, her voice brittle, trembling. He won't talk to me. He's just gone. She waited for comfort. Instead, her sister said something that stopped her cold. Well, maybe now you understand what he felt. There was silence after that. Then tears. But not the kind that fix anything. The kind that come too late. She tried to reclaim some control after that. Sent long texts about wanting to rebuild. Left a note on my pillow, handwritten, shaky. I still love you. I folded it and placed it in a drawer. Didn't throw it away. Didn't answer, either. Because I didn't hate her. I just wasn't hers anymore. By the time she asked me, "Is this really over?" I was already packed. And when she asked, "Why didn't you fight for us?" I told her the truth. "You stopped showing up long before I stopped trying." And that was the first time she didn't have a reply. She just stood there, watching the man she thought would always stay finally walk away. I didn't leave with a speech. I didn't slam the door or shatter plates or throw accusations like knives. I left the way every man should when it's final. Quiet. Clean. With nothing left to prove. The morning I moved out, she didn't speak. She watched me from the hallway, wrapped in the same robe she used to wear on Sunday mornings when things were good. Only this time, it looked like a costume from a life that didn't fit anymore. I carried 2 bags and a toolbox. That's all I took. No drama. No second thoughts. I didn't take the photos. I didn't take the memories. Just the pieces of myself that I came with, and the new ones I built along the way. She asked if we could sit down. Just for a minute. I said no. Not because I wanted to hurt her. Because I wasn't opening a door I had already closed. She stood there, arms crossed like she was cold, but it wasn't the weather. It was the reality finally settling in. The silence was no longer a tactic. It was the new normal. As I stepped outside, she followed to the porch. The sky was overcast. Fitting. The kind of gray that makes the world feel still. She said my name once. I didn't stop. She tried again. A little softer this time. A little smaller. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I turned, just for a second, and told her what I should have said months ago. No one means to starve someone they think will never leave. She looked like she wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to defend. I got into the truck, started the engine, and didn't look back. Because that version of me, the man who stayed through silence, through cold beds and colder glances, he wasn't behind that door anymore. He was behind the wheel, driving toward peace. Weeks passed. She texted, called, even showed up once, stood outside my new place until the porch light clicked on. I didn't open the door. Didn't have to. Because the strongest goodbye isn't shouted. It's lived. I went back to things I forgot I loved. Early runs before sunrise. Projects in the garage that smelled like cedar and possibility. My hands stopped shaking when I was alone. There was no anger in me anymore. Just distance. And that was enough. Months later, I heard through a friend that she tried dating again. Didn't last. One guy told her she was distant. Another said she didn't know how to connect. Maybe she didn't. Or maybe she just never thought the man who gave everything would one day give nothing. She reached out one final time. Said she'd changed. That she wanted to start over. I replied with one sentence. I'm not who I was, and you're not what I want. Blocked her. That was the real ending. Not a breakup. A rebirth. Because the man she lost wasn't bitter. He was better. And she would hear that truth every morning in a house that no longer echoed with his name. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.